In the American Hospital Medicamentum, there was one ward that evoked a grim sense of dread among all medical workers. This old department was deeply forgotten and rarely visited, even by the most desperate patients. It was believed to be cursed or permeated with sinister forces, and the nurses and doctors did everything possible to avoid entering. All of this was because of one enigmatic patient known as the patient without a face. His real name was unknown to anyone, and his face was always covered with multiple layers of bandages, leaving only a small slit for his eyes. The gaze of this patient penetrated to the very soul, and everyone who met his gaze felt as if their essence was pierced. Details about the mysterious patient as past were shrouded in darkness. Hospital records were empty, and no one knew how he ended up there or what happened to his face. Speculations revolved around horrific injuries and accidents he might have endured, but the true story remained a secret. Rumors whispered that this patient was the victim of a terrible curse or a pact with dark forces. Such tales intensified the mystical atmosphere surrounding him, and the rumors grew increasingly horrifying. It was said that when night fell upon the hospital, he spoke to dark entities, summoning them with flickering candles and uttering mysterious sin. When newcomers arrived at the hospital, the seasoned staff would entertain themselves by giving them a little tour of the patient without a face ward. They would tell stories of how, once upon a time, this patient was an ordinary person, but his thirst for power and wealth led him to dark magic. It is said that he made a deal with a horrifying spirit, promising him endless riches and power in exchange for his soul. However, the spirit deceived him, condemning him to eternal wandering between worlds and taking away his face, leaving only his eyes so that he would forever feel fear and torment. Since then, the patient became uncontrollable and became a puppet in the hands of dark forces. The legends of the patient without a face haunted not only the medical staff but also the patients themselves. Once, when a nurse named Emma witnessed a strange phenomenon near his bed, she began to doubt her sanity. It was late at night, and most of the hospital was engulfed in silence. Emma entered the patient without a face ward to make sure everything was okay. As she entered, her eyes caught a trembling glow, and she saw shadows dancing on the walls. Surprised, she looked around the room, but there was no one alive present. Suddenly, a small hand reached out from under the bed and grabbed a doll that was dressed exactly like the patient without a face. Seeing this, Emma screamed and ran away, deeply frightened. Since then, Emma avoided that part of the hospital, trying to forget what she had seen, but the horrifying events didn't stop. The following nights became a nightmare for her. She heard faint footsteps behind her, felt a cold stare, and heard indistinct whispers in the darkness. One day, as she passed by the patient without a face ward again, she noticed something strange. The bandages that covered his face were embroidered with peculiar symbols and runes, as if someone had tried to create a magical barrier to contain the sinister forces locked within. With each passing day, the ward grew more mysterious and ominous. It seemed to live its own life, attracting dreadful stories and mystical beings. The patient without a face became an obsession for the hospital, and no one knew how to rid themselves of this terrifying secret. With each passing day, the ward grew more mysterious and ominous. It seemed to live its own life, attracting dreadful stories and mystical beings. The patient without a face became an obsession for the hospital, and no one knew how to rid themselves of this terrifying secret. What became of the enigmatic patient without a face remains unknown. However, one thing was clear: he left his sinister mark on Medicamentum Hospital, and his mysterious tales would live on in the hearts of those who heard of him, haunting them with vague premonitions and fear of the unknown.